concept of liminal spaces has captivated me since day one. And this weekend, I finally broke down and made my own little creatures and levels to the Backrooms. If you have any alternate names for these entities that I have made, or even different names for the areas that they live within, let me know down in the comments. But without further ado, here's 4 new Backrooms entities.
Our first denizen of the Backrooms simply calls itself the Warren Keeper. From initial conversations with it, telepathically, as apparently if it opened its mouth to speak, I would be melted from the sheer eldritch nature of its language. Warren Keeper protects 2 adjoining areas. One is a place filled with brightly coloured plastic slides that resemble those play slides of our youths. The room that I spoke to the keeper in smelled of fresh French fries and was filled with the constant buzz of fluorescent lighting, but it wasn't enough to give me a headache. It was just oddly pleasant, even comforting. The second area I was not allowed in, but the keeper gave me a photo. It consisted of a very long hallway with many doors leading off into other sections of the room itself, and it was only filled with what we might call rabbits, though the rabbits themselves were quite grainy and somewhat distorted in the picture. The keeper said that these creatures are their wards, and one day they would be replaced by one of them, and the cycle would continue. I asked why it was important that they be so protected. However, I was not allowed this information either. Closed practice, it said. Fair enough.
The images that inspired this creature came from a board Jack provided. This one reminded me of the movie Us, with the long hallway with all the rabbits. You know the one. And I don't know about you, but I loved those dang play places as a kid, despite my severe anxiety being known by other people. It was a strangely comforting experience just sitting by the ball pit or at the edge of one of the slides. I wanted to make something soft yet odd, and I've always loved the creatures that embody No Face from Spirited Away, so I kind of smashed the idea of a deer, cat, and bunny into some weird amalgamation that I think is very sweet to look at. Most of its anatomy is rounded out, and any of the poses that I worked out are very sweet or serene. I specifically picked out the cutest reference images to try and get that across. It was a real adventure working out the expressions on a creature that doesn't have expressions, but that's where the neck comes in. To be able to move between all of the slides with ease, the Warren Keeper can elongate its neck infinitely, which also helps it check in on the wards when it needs to, but also has to stay within the main fun time room. It also functions as a way to convey emotions, whether it's trying to hide and bows its head to do so, very demure of it, to it being alert and looking around by telescoping its neck. It's very storybook, and I love that about it. To keep it easy on the eyes but still captivating, especially since it's the embodiment of childhood, I made its mask look vaguely bunny or sheep-like and also brightly colored. The body of the thing is important, but so equally are the eyes. The keeper has kind yet sharp eyes. It knows things beyond human comprehension. It also knows when to give the semblance of a smile so as to not scare whoever comes across it. The Warren Keeper may be secretive, but it will make sure you're safe, and its levels are always stable. That doesn't mean things are perfect though. There are parts of the ward area that people aren't allowed inside for a reason. Anyway, let's go to the second entity.
This is a very unstable section of the Backrooms. I would proceed with caution before venturing down here. I stumbled upon this vast labyrinth of white walls not too far into my journey, and it is not somewhere I wish to be again. There are little pockets within the TV static station where you can sit upon dark grey boulders and stare at screens for however long you like, but the more time you spend down here, the more time it gives the Globblins to find you. They start as tiny bits of static that float out from the screens, and they coalesce into a writhing mass of liquid black something. They're all eyes and teeth, and they drip everywhere. The stench of ozone burns your nostrils and makes it hard to breathe the closer they get. Do not let them touch you.
These creatures are inspired from an image that Meg sent in. Thank you, Meg. Unfortunately, my iPad glitched out, so all I have is the speed paint from Procreate. Apologies. In between larger creations, I wanted to give myself a break and draw little guys. That's pretty much what this was. They form in long pieces that come out of the various TV screens, and if they touch you, They'll give you quite the nasty burn. I don't recommend it. It was also really fun to play around with how expressive you can make these sort of inanimate objects. Depending on the mouth shape you give things or what angle you make the arms, you could make a monster look happy or downright horrifying. But hey, as long as you don't get too close to these things, they're pretty fun to look at.
Another place I never want to be in again. Not only is the cinder block level devoid of light in most places, and therefore rife with smilers, it's home to a creature that calls itself Squinky. Its intelligence is strangely human and looks to be made of some sort of meat or meats. I wouldn't be shocked if it was human once, honestly. When I bumped into it, the creature was strangely cordial and just wanted to dance with me. It was a hard enough task considering Squinky is very sharp and very slippery. I did not ask what it secreted, nor do I want to know. There were several instances where Squinky tried to manipulate me into the complex of concrete tunnels, but I politely declined and made my way out as quickly as possible. If you do come across Squinky, match its positivity. I would hate to know what happens if you don't. And always dance with it if it asks.
This creature was inspired by an image sent in by our beloved Laura, which I think is actually a real place. It's like a bomb shelter or something. This was originally called That Which Lurks, and I kind of wanted it to look like that shapeshifter creature from Gravity Falls, but it ended up looking like some sort of horrifying eldritch Pokemon. The reason why it's called Squinky is, well, because I showed my husband the final illustration and he exclaimed, "That's Squinky!" And so it was. I had a hard time initially with this design and thought about scrapping it several times, but in the end I decided to just go ahead with the flow and see what happened. At first I didn't want it to have a head, but it just looked kind of wrong without one, and I was slowly becoming attached to the idea of some vaguely humanoid creature becoming warped over time by the Backrooms. I tried to do some posing and it kind of worked out, but it was honestly pretty frustrating, so I just launched into the illustration to see what stuck. Eventually I had to tell myself to just try my best with the human posture, and I think it did turn out pretty well. My first iterations were a lot more solid, but I really love the idea that Squinky is made up of really sinewy parts, or almost like sausage casing. It's a really wiry guy. Might be a close cousin to that weird wire entity that everyone was losing their minds over. I think I managed to balance the line between horrifying, but also kind of silly with the addition of mouths, which are very cartoony. The style of teeth compels me so, and I love adding it to anything I can get my hands on. Squinky was no exception to that. The dancing pose and the decision of making him pink was to convey that uncanny valley of something that should be fine to be around, but you just know that this guy is bad news. A trickster of sorts, if you will. And we love a good trickster.
The Warren Keeper is hiding something sinister. Whatever this thing is, it's one of them, but twisted, corrupted. At first I heard the whispers while I hunkered down in the back office of the convenience store. "Come to the front, we're closing soon." Something in me was in a panic at those words, as if I'd spent too long in the department store and I knew I was going to be a problem for the employees if I didn't get out. But I was safe here, and I wasn't buying anything. I ignored it for as long as I could, but the whispers kept getting louder and louder. It was too overwhelming. When I snuck out the side entrance and looked around the corner, it was there. It stood underneath the blaring lights of the gas pumps and just stared at me. Thankfully, I knew not to stick around after that.
Alright, so this was the easiest. It was supposed to be the corrupted version of the Warren Keeper. So I wanted to stray away from a couple of things while keeping it largely the same in some areas. The body itself I wanted to still be lithe and long, softer around some parts so that it still retained the look of the Keeper, and also per the lore so that it could lure people in. The mask was the largest and most obvious change. I took out the nose and really elongated it. Looks like one of those Berzois that's viral on TikTok. You know the ones. We all do. The reason I took out the nose was so that it looked a little more evil. It takes the innocence out of the creature for some reason. Originally, I did want to give it spikes instead of the fluffier neck fur, but decided against it in the end and went for a sleeker version. I didn't want to muddy the design down, and it already looked pretty creepy without the spikes, especially once I started drawing it out on the environment piece. I briefly thought about changing the eye color from blue to red, but I really liked the original colors on it, and it also ended up looking very Blue Eyes meme, theme out there, which worked in my favor. Overall, I think the Cashier, as I'm calling it, and the Warren Keeper are my favorites. I really enjoyed making these wacky little guys. Thank you for sticking around and watching. I really appreciate it. This was a cool little project for myself. I really enjoy the Backrooms. If I could watch hours of video essays and read all of the Wikipedia entries, I definitely would. And suffice to say, I definitely have somewhat done so. Let me know if you have any suggestions for any more Backrooms entities or even levels that I might be able to make cool little things for. If you enjoy my content, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. If you super like my content, go ahead and consider becoming a patron or a channel member. You get a shout out at the end of every video, and at the highest tier, you get early access within a couple days of all of my videos coming out. All my socials and also my Etsy store are linked down in the description below. I also have a second channel that's a gaming channel that maybe I'll make Backrooms content for eventually. Just remember not to look in your attic. I finally got the sequence of events right where I just like sort of hit the back left corner and then I can no clip down into the Backrooms, and I need to go get B-roll footage for this video in particular, so thank you. I'll be home later. Thank you to Jacques, Herald of the Dark Roast, Meg, Exarch of the Golden Egg, High Artisan Anonymous Bee, Great Alpha Wolf Squilliam William, Nairuz, Seer of Rosy Mercy, Ghost, Infernal Collector of the Damned, Golden Paladin Court, Isabella, Redeemer of Bad Himbos, Keeper of the Lapin Warren, Robin, Most Royal of all the Rats, Ethereal Consort of House Vicarian, Fungal Sovereign Taz, Exalted Curator Wick, the Under-Elf of Delphinia, Paragon of Starlight, an impossible amount of rat babies, Divine Herald Jordan, Estrella, Sage of the Outer Realms, Wretched Sauce of House Worcestershire, Champion Pallypunk of the Immortal Valley, Tailor of Macabre Coney Livery, Eternal Apostle Austin, the Contingent of Fables, the Eminence of Light, Bunny, Exarch of the Ornate Tomb, Harley the Sanguinous, Grand Overlord Silas, Being of Exalted Sunlight, Delegate of Clan Latineurs, Eternal Consul Puja, High Magi Katie, the Herald of Wrens, Knight Susan of the Milkiest Order, Great Seer Clare, and Sir Matthew, Guardian of the Preserved Apiary.